Dear Heavenly Father, gracious God, we want to thank you for this opportunity this morning to come together and start this day, to open your word and to study. We ask you to be in our midst. Send your Holy Spirit, pour out your letter rain upon us. Be with us in the discussions we have in searching the scriptures. Open up our minds and our understanding that we might understand and lead us in the direction you want us to go. We ask and pray this in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Numbers 22. Tyler was telling me that they, a group of them, whoever they are, found a nice passage where the third time that Balaam strikes the ass, verse 31 of Numbers 22. Let's start in verse 27 to 32. 27 to 32, one verse each. I'll start. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she fell down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff.
And the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and she said unto Balaam, What have I done unto thee, that thou hast smitten me these 3 times?
And Balaam said unto the ass, Because thou hast mocked me, I would there wear a sword in mine hand, for now would I kill thee.
And the ass said unto Balaam, Am not I thine ass upon which thou hast ridden, ever since I was thine unto this day? Was I ever wont to do so unto thee? And he said, Nay.
Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his sword drawn in his hand. And he bowed down his head and fell flat on his face.
And the angel of the Lord said unto him, Wherefore hast thou smitten thine ass these 3 times? Behold, I went out to withstand thee, because thy way is perverse before me.
And the ass saw me and turned from me these 3 times. Unless she had turned from me, surely now also I had slain thee and saved her life.
Okay, so there's a few things. The reason I backed up that we've already a long time ago put in place that we would include in this. We see that striking of the ass here, and here's the 3rd time, and there's a speaking that goes on here. There's an angel. And is there anything else before we deal with the main point? Opened his mouth. Oh, and has mocked me. So that's past tense. So the mocking goes on here. And although there's mocking at different places, primarily the mocking is in this period of time. But what was noticed,
Mocking is after the 3rd time, right?
no, has, it's past tense. This is, and Balaam said unto the ass, Because thou hast mocked me. The ass is here asking him why he struck him, and he said, Because, past tense. Not because you are mocking me. But what we wanted to focus in on is verse 31, is it? Mm-hmm. When this happens, what does Balaam do in verse 31?
Falls on his face.
Falls on his face. And worships him if he bows down his head, even though it's not explicitly said worship, he's bowing his head, falling on his face. So why is that important to us? Go back to Daniel 2,
46.
verse 46. Tamina?
Then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto him.
So we're marking that here with Nebuchadnezzar and saying that we have a second witness with the ass. So he falls on his face, does it say? Falls and worships. And what that's doing, what's that doing? It's giving us a second witness that this is the Sunday law.
Didn't we mark it yesterday in the midnight cry?
Yeah, well, I don't know, did we?
Yeah.
But that's okay, right?
It's the same point at one level.
Yeah, it's fractal. You're going to see the same experience. But as Tyler told me when he was hooking me up, what this is doing is it's contributing to who Nebuchadnezzar is, because we know that Balaam is the false prophet. So Balaam's falling on his face worshiping Daniel, and Nebuchadnezzar is falling on his face worshiping Daniel. This is evidence that Nebuchadnezzar in this line may very well be representing the United States, and now you have to figure out if it's the United States in general or if it's the United States apostate Protestantism or Republicanism. But you at least got a second witness that Nebuchadnezzar here is the USA. And you got Pharaoh running through there. From here on, Pharaoh's having a dream where he calls in his wise men, just like Nebuchadnezzar had a dream and calls in his wise men. So when you have Pharaoh and Nebuchadnezzar, two symbols of one symbol, I think you got justification for saying Nebuchadnezzar is apostate Protestantism and Pharaoh is republicanism. But are we done with chapter 2? Other than we're not dealing with the breakdown that Daniel gives Nebuchadnezzar about the kingdoms of Bible prophecy at this time. Did we leave anything out of chapter 2? When you guys were looking at it last night in relation to Numbers 22, did you see anything else?
We were just doing Numbers 22 and we came across that.
Okay, so let's plug in what we know about chapter 3. And what we know about chapter 3 is that, and it should be here, but because of this, that Nebuchadnezzar is going to make an image, and it's solid gold. This is the solid gold image. I'll put the crown on it. This has been thrashed. Okay. What's it mean that it's solid gold?
The kingdom was going to remain
Forever.
Okay. So I'm arguing that when Daniel here or Daniel here, okay, can be replaced because of the fractal, is explaining, or is that this second image, because I'm saying this image in Daniel 3 has to be built before the test. The test is the Sunday law. Many witnesses in the spirit of prophecy to that fact. But the building of and setting up of the statue has to take place in this period of time. That's the image of the beast testing time. But this image is solid gold, which means that this second image in the book of Daniel, we know that Nebuchadnezzar is basing it upon this image that had these different metals, but he does his image solid gold, and Babylon is the head of gold. So at the end of the world, in this history, when God's people are explaining this statue to whoever they're going to explain it to, Pharaoh or Nebuchadnezzar, the kingdoms that are represented in this statue are the kingdoms that make up modern Babylon, and Babylon is gold. That's why it is solid gold. Right? Okay, so in this, you really don't need the spirit of prophecy. The spirit of prophecy makes it crystal clear, but you can tell that this is the Sunday law, and that, how can you tell that this is the Sunday law in terms of the issue being broadcast around the world in Daniel chapter 3?
Because there is a law made where we have to bow down.
No,
Just
in
to
Daniel
save it.
chapter 3.
Oh.
Simple one. It's that every representative of the world is drawn to this text, right? All the what's the list of them? Princes, governors, captains, judges, treasurers, counselors, sheriffs, and rulers of the provinces come to the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. So the whole world is watching this. So is the whole world watching it in this history? Yeah, and of course it'd be watching it in this history too, but what's going on in this history in terms of the kings of Israel and Judah?
Jeroboam 2 and
Jeroboam 2, Zechariah, the two sticks are coming together, and what is one of the meanings of Jeroboam 2?
contention or flock.
Contention. So, this is the valley of decision, where people are being plowed if they're 11th hour workers.
There are 8 groups called.
Yeah. What does that mean?
We mark the number 8 between the midnight cry and the sun.
The number 8.
From the cleansing of the temple. The priest cleansed the inner temple 8 days, from 9/11 to midnight cry, and then at the midnight cry the Sanillah is another 8 days, which ends up to 16 days.
8 and 8. And you're saying that based upon 2 Chronicles 29. Is it 29? Yeah.
No, we did
The 8 is in the right.
9/11 to the midnight
9/11 to
cry.
the midnight cry.
No, that's not what she's saying though.
What did she
She's saying that in the image testing time, there are 8 types of
There are 8
world
groups.
representatives. Let's read it in verse 2 and count them. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, 1, governors, 2, captains, 3, judges, 4, treasurers, 5, counselors, 6, sheriffs, 7, and the rulers of the provinces, 8. So they're in this history looking at this golden image, and they're also going to be in this history when the image of the beast test is repeated in the world rather than in the United States. So she's saying there's an 8 here and an 8 here, but in 2 Chronicles 29 we have an 8 and an 8 here.
And also we have the riddle, which the sin always comes up number 8.
Okay, so this image includes the light of Revelation 17 where you have 8 kingdoms, but that's kind of a different...
It's
It's 8.
Well, it's 8.
It's a symbol of first fruits, right?
A symbol of first fruits.
First fruits, and we know that's the time of first fruits. Both those.
Why is
periods.
it a symbol of first fruits?
It's the. Isn't it the? I have that in my mind. It's the 8th day.
It's the 16th day.
Or the 16th day.
8
sorry.
and 8, the 16th day is the resurrection of Christ.
It will lead us, it's the 8th day, the day that follows the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Sunday, therefore, it's the Sunday law agitation. They're in the Sunday law agitation. And if you see it in from 9/11 to the midnight cry,
What Tyler's saying is this is the 14th, this is the 15th, And this is the 16th in terms of Passover to first fruits. Now, what are you saying?
Yeah, the number 8 can also be a symbol for the Sunday. So it's pointing to the crisis in the midnight cry, and then the crisis from the midnight cry to the Sunday law.
Okay.
Just symbolizing Sunday law.
And number 8 can be a symbol of
Isn't it a symbol of rebirth?
resurrection.
Yes.
rebirth?
Yeah, resurrection.
Okay.
I thought it was
Is there a resurrection here?
negative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a
Symbol.
resurrection here? Tamina?
Revelation 17, he's the 8th king and is from the 7. After the son-in-law, he starts to reign, the 8th king. We have
Okay,
number
the
8.
8th kingdom, which is the 6th kingdom, but the 8th is going to reign in here. Let's pick the other thing up in verse 15 of Daniel 3. Whose turn to read?
Me? Is that
Yeah.
my turn? Yeah. Now, if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute,
2,
harp,
3,
sackbut,
4, 5.
psaltery, the dulcimer,
6,
and all kinds of music, ye shall
7.
fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands?
So you have hands here. There's only 7 kind of instruments, huh? But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, 7, and 7. Okay, in verse 7, let's count the instruments. Cornet 1, flute 2, harp 3, sackbut 4, psaltery 5, all kinds of music 6.
No, that's just all kinds of music.
Okay, well then it would be 5, but I'm counting all kinds of music as 6. Okay, there's no argument there. The argument is, why is it different in verse 10 and verse 15? Because it's different. In verse 10 it says, cornet 1, flute 2, harp 3, sackbut 4, psaltery 5, dulcimer 6, and all kinds of music 7. And then in verse 15, cornet 1, flute 2, harp 3, sackbut 4, psaltery 5, dulcimer 6, all kinds of music 7. So you got this mentioned 3 times, but the last 2 times of the 3, there's an extra instrument in it. It's 6, 7, 7, unless you eliminate the all kinds of music. It'd be 5, 6, 6. What does that mean?
Verse 5, you've
Right.
got 6.
My margin says, because it's the dulcimer, I think, that is added, and the dulcimer says in my margin,
Singing.
No. Yeah, mine too.
677
Pardon me?
677 BC.
677 BC, but there's another verse that I left out. I left out verse 5, where it's
Good.
6. The dulcimer's in there too?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 7, 6, 7, 7. Or 5, 6, 5, 5. Anyway, we're just noting that.
Dulcimer is singing.
Dulcimer
maybe
is
it's some
singing.
instrument that, you can,
You want to just throw out the singing. That's a kind of music though.
yeah, oh yeah, but it's different.
It's not an instrument.
It's
Yes, it
different
is.
instrument.
It is, it's a voice instrument, I guess.
It said all kinds of music though.
You count on
It's
string.
any type of
What
music.
is?
Yeah.
Dulcimer mountain.
No,
In
we're talking
any
about all kinds of
case-
music.
It's a,
That's
No
the
matter
same.
what it is, it's added in twice.
it's a false type of worship. I've watched or read a study done by a Jewish person on the instruments that they were supposed to be done in the sanctuary compared to these. And he kind of proved that this is a worldly worship compared to the worship that the sanctuary was required to do.
Yeah, but we would, that kind of, I think we know that just from who's doing the worship. It's a Babylonian worship. I'm just noting the mathematical nuances. Okay, the one thing I left out, this is the 1 hour. It's cast in the fiery furnace Pardon me?
She said the same hour.
It says the same.
The same hour.
Question: where do we see the third time the instruments? I only saw them in verse 5 and
5, 7, 10, 15.
5, 7,
10, 15.
10, and 15.
Okay, thank you.
With the dogs and I singing the Tyre singing as a harlot. Maybe the music's all set up, but you gotta wait until Tyre sings.
Okay, that's a nice thought.
What did I didn't hear him?
Tyre sings.
He's saying the
yeah, as a
singing would be
harlot.
Tyre singing. Could be. All right.
Are those the 3 steps from the midnight cry to the son-in-law?
There's 4.
4 times the music?
Yeah. 5, verse 5, verse 7, verse 10, and verse 15.
So that's marking the 4 and from the binding off between the midnight cry and the son-in-law?
Well, first off, we're doing this. Okay, the hour is cast in Sunday law. So you're trying to argue that because it's in 4 verses, that you got number 4 there.
Yeah, do they do that one time or are they doing the whole procedure 4 times?
I don't know, it's mentioned 4 times. It's talking about the one time. In verse 5, that when at the time you hear, future tense. 7, therefore at that time, still putting it in the future. Then the bad guys are saying, Lord, or Nebuchadnezzar, you've made a decree. We got to get the decree. Where's the decree go? A decree.
It's talking about. It seems like it's talking about when it starts. It's like a one time when it starts. And these are the instruments they're going to use.
Okay.
From what fruit do you have 1 hour? It's the same hour.
It's 15?
15. It's the same hour as the music. In verse 15. It's when they get cast into the fiery furnace. And where does it say that they're bound? We want to put that in there. Verse 21. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, and their hats, and other garments, and were cast. So this is a binding off.
Also in 19.
19 says what?
20. They're bound, but in 20 they're also, they bind them.
Okay, it's 20 and 21. And what is the furnace? What happens with the furnace here?
10
7 times.
7 times. I said that last time too.
Is there anything else that we're leaving out?
Sorry to come back, but... So I guess the 4 times are rather between the son-in-law and the close of probation, because it's also about the entire world. Because
You want to put the number 4 up there because you got it expressed 4 times?
yeah, kind of. And we have the binding.
All right, we can put the 4 up there because the binding has a number 4 in it, you're saying.
We had the coats they were unchained, they were sealed because they went in with their coats and they came out with the same
Coats.
coat.
So they are,
Coats and hats.
how do we express that?
It was it's the third test and it does not change them.
Apparel.
It's
So it's the 3rd test. I'm going to put it over here. The number 4 we'll put with the binding off because we know it goes there, and the binding off is the 3rd test. Right? But we know that all of these can come back here too. Right? So I'll do that this way. What else are we leaving out?
I wonder why these coats and hosen and hats and garments are mentioned in verse 21.
Well, we dealt with that while you were gone, and it's that they have Christ's righteousness before they're thrown in the fiery furnace. You have to be settled into the truth spiritually and intellectually in advance of the Sunday law. So they were bound, though. There were ropes that bound them, marking the binding off period, but those get burned off, but they have the same clothes. So this history for them, the binding off, isn't a history where they are developing character. They've already developed that character. It's some kind of preparation.
What is the decree that Nebuchadnezzar makes afterwards, saying everyone has to worship God? I know Sister White comments on that. I believe it says it's still an unrighteous decree. Could that be the close of probation World Sunday Law, or because it's a decree after the decree?
Where is it?
29.
Therefore, I make a decree that some people,
Every person.
that's universal decree. So verse 29 we're saying is universal Sunday law, which is close of probation. Right? When this law becomes universal, the Lord will arise to shake terribly the earth or something. There's a statement like that. Sister Brittany?
When it's talking about the instruments and it names the dulcimer as a different one, we didn't come to a conclusion about that, right?
Well, we're saying it's singing, and maybe it's the singing of Tyre. Go ahead, tell us what you think.
Well, I don't know what I think, but I don't remember what we had concluded about in Revelation where it says voices, thunderings, lightnings, and earthquakes. But remember there was like one or two verses that had one that was different. I don't know if that might draw some insight on this or something. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we never resolved that one either, did we?
Can you explain again, why is the universal Sunday law close of probation?
There's a statement in the Spirit of Prophecy. She says, when this, maybe not law, but when this law becomes universal, then shall the Lord arise to shake terribly the earth. And you can tell by the context of what she's saying is that the universal Sunday law, that human probation closes. Worldwide Sunday law. Someone want to pull that quote up?
So what does it mean? Like Sunday law comes to France and then it's
come to France,
etc.
But when the whole world agrees, okay, we're doing a universal Sunday law, it's a progressive decision. It begins in the United States. Each country, like a domino, is going to fall. But in this time period, the one world government's getting implemented. So at some point, I guess they realize they have the majority of the world in place. They pass a universal Sunday law. What's the Sunday law that follows that, or the decree that follows that?
Death decree.
Yeah, I thought it was the death decree.
No, that's good. Some people misunderstand it. When is the death decree?
During the time.
Yeah, it's after probation closes. Mm-hmm. Whereas the universal Sunday law marks the close of probation.
I have the quote.
Okay, you want to read it into the record? What is it?
It is 7 Testimonies, 71:1, paragraph 1. I'll read the whole thing. Never did this message apply with greater force than it applies today. More and more the world is setting at naught the claims of God. Men have become bold in transgression. The wickedness of the inhabitants of the world have almost filled up the measure of their iniquity. This earth has almost reached the place where God will permit the destroyer to work his will upon it. The substitution of the laws of men for the law of God, the exaltation by merely human authority of Sunday in the place of the Bible Sabbath, is the last act in the drama. When this substitution becomes universal, God will reveal himself. He will arise in his majesty to shake terribly the earth. He will come out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the world for their iniquity, and the earth shall disclose her blood and shall no more cover her slain.
He's coming out of his place. He's coming out of the most holy place and putting his garments of vengeance on. He will come out of his place and punish it. So when this law becomes universal, human probation closes.
So when the process is finished of the universal Sunday law, I mean,
Yep.
200 or countries, whatever, the last one.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's so much that you can lean on the process being complete as it is that it is a universal Sunday law. Maybe there's still people rebelling against it, but when they pass that law, it's the end of the road for probation. This here is I'm putting this here, this is the image of Daniel 2 that Nebuchadnezzar has in his dream that troubles him. And we're putting the troubling dream at 9/11. So this is representing his dream, of which Daniel's going to come in and explain. But I want us to see that here and here you have a doubling of the images. Only this one is solid gold. This is the image of modern Babylon at the end of the world. And what we're understanding from Ezekiel 21, modern Babylon at the end of the world would be the papacy, which is spiritual Babylon, the United States, the United Nations, and the deadly wound healed, modern Rome. And these three are modern Babylon. So all of these are Babylon at that level. Therefore, they're all gold.
I just see in the first 3 chapters of Daniel a progressive uplifting of Daniel and his friends, because in the first chapter he and his friends are 10 times wiser, and then in the end of chapter 2, where is it? It says they were set over affairs of the province of Babylon, and then in the end of chapter 3 it says, and then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the provinces of Babylon. So at every chapter they get more power or more a higher setting.
Lifted up.
It's like a progressive
Ensign, a lifting up of an ensign all the way through.
Yeah, could we not also find in verse 24 an inquiry, because the king here also says, did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?
Yeah, but is there? Well, I'm doing red here. Inquiry. I thought. Inquiry. I thought the midnight cry is where the inquiry comes. They let me get away with it once, but not the second time. So what's how can we have an inquiry at both places?
Fractals of each other.
Because they're both a fulfillment of the parable of the 10 virgins, right? Here the virgins of the priest are awakened. Here the virgins of the Levites are awakened. And there's one class that are going to say, give us sub-zero oil in both of these waymarks. So yeah, that's the inquiry there. What else are we missing on Daniel 3?
Another question. On verse 26, it says, when Nebuchadnezzar came near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace, the word mouth in Chaldean, it means door.
Yeah.
So the fiery furnace, it's a door.
14.
Pardon me?
I was going to say, the decree in verse 10.
The decree in verse 10.
Henry, what verse was it?
Verse 10.
Verse 26.
Thou, O king, hast made a decree, every man that shall hear the sound.
So this decree is going to be enacted here, but he's made a decree. No, this was, go ahead, explain it.
Well, it seems, okay, I don't know why I'm thinking it's previous. It's
Yeah, it has to be previous.
The bowing down is there in Sunday law.
Yeah.
So the decree must be.
Yeah.
Where's the Sunday law decree in advance of the Sunday law? The midnight cry. But and this is based upon what?
Esther with Haman.
Okay, but
Okay.
yeah, okay, that's valid. But what I mean by that is when Sister White in the Great Controversy brings up the Sunday law, she says if we would understand how the Sunday law is going to come in, we but have to look at how it came in the past. And then she goes back to, what's his name? Constantine, 321, and shows a progression of Sunday laws that lead to the one that forces you to observe Sunday and persecutes you for keeping Sabbath. But it teaches us that in advance of the Sunday law, there is going to be a series of Sunday laws, and that's why we put the beginning of the image of the beast testing time as a Sunday law decree. Not the one that fulfills Revelation 13:11, but it's the beginning of a series of decrees. Therefore, when they're coming to him here and saying, and I mentioned this once a while back, how many test Sunday law, if this is the Sunday law test in there, how many are there marked in Daniel 3? Pardon me? What, did you whisper something, my sister? No? Sister Pam? Isn't there two? There's two. Okay, it happens and they don't bow down, and then the bad guys come and say, hey, they didn't do it. Okay, heat the furnace 7 times for this one. So if the furnace is heated 7 times for here, and this is the Sunday law, this is when they get thrown in the fiery furnace, then where's the one that gets them exposed as being rebels? Back here. Okay, and there's people in this history that see these people here are not going with the flow of history.
Like Daniel 3.
Pardon me?
That's Daniel 3:8.
Daniel 3:8. Okay, but
that they accused the Jews.
They accused the Jews. So I'm going to put a decree in here by inference, right?
Sorry, I don't know if you mentioned about his speaking, but verse 26, Nebuchadnezzar speaks. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, your servants of the Most High God, come forth and come hither. I'm just wondering, did you mention that already?
No, I don't know where to put that. There's a speaking here, but they're already in the furnace. So he's speaking here, but it's not, now it's not a persecution speaking, it's an amazement, you know. No, I'm not saying it doesn't mean something. I'm saying I don't know what it means that he's speaking in this history, but typically when a king is speaking, you would mark it as an action of the legislative and judicial authorities.
Verse 13 mentions that Nebuchadnezzar is in rage and fury. That's a symbol.
Yeah, that's good, but where does it say that his visage was changed?
Form of his visage was changed against him or something like that.
It's got 19. He's full of fury.
That's progressive evil.
Okay, so which one were you?
13.
Okay, 13. Bring him here. He's found out about him. So this is the same thing. It's his visage has changed.
Is that Daniel 11 verse 44?
Daniel 11 verse 44. He utterly goes forth to destroy and utterly. He goes forth to utterly destroy and make away many.
What does that mean? Is that his demeanor? Is that what it's talking about?
In
his
19?
visage,
Yes.
it's his body language.
Yes.
And that's, I'm thinking that right here, the United States has changed. Okay, it's, they are the power that changes. They begin as a lamb, they end up speaking as a dragon, and right here they're speaking as a dragon, and their visage has changed because now they're no longer the sixth kingdom of Bible prophecy. They have become 1/10 of the seventh kingdom of Bible prophecy. Their visage has changed, and it has changed into a persecuting power, which is what the 10 kings, the dragon power, represent. So the form of his visage changing, I would think, is addressing that. Because this is technically, even though the United States is speaking as a dragon leading up to this is technically where she speaks as a dragon. She's changed from a lamb to a dragon.
Is there a way to see and I think it's Revelation 12, the dragon was wroth with the woman? Is there an application of that at the Sunday law?
Why?
I'm just seeing a dragon being angry here. The United States speaking as a dragon, being angry, and then you have in Revelation 12, you have the dragon being wroth with the woman, marking the anger. I don't know if that's valid or not. But.
No, that's right here. The final warfare against God's people is this 1 hour. It's also the 10 kings in Revelation 17. Is it 14? That they're going to make war with the Lamb, or is it 13? Sister Brittany?
That's when Ahasuerus was wroth with Vashti and divorced her.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to put this on the place, and then we're going to go back in and bring these other lines, like Esther, into it.
Well, just to mark the anger there.
And that's what we'll do, is we'll put it there.
In verse 2, it's pointed out that there were 7 people that were gathered together with Nebuchadnezzar at the worship of the image. But then when Nebuchadnezzar claims that he saw 4 instead of 3, the ones that were there are only 427. And it says that there were princes, governor, captains, and the king counselors.
I'm not following what you're saying. What are you saying?
In verse 2, there were 7 different types of people that were witnessing the worshiping.
6, 7, 8 if you count all the rulers.
Okay, 8. Well, in verse 27, there's only 7 mentioned, only 4 mentioned.
Princes, captains. And what does that mean? He calls 8 into this history.
And when Nebuchadnezzar, that would be 5, the fully virgin.
Is it the binding off
In
of
verse-
the tares?
Pardon me?
Is it the binding off of the tares?
The binding off of the tares.
Yeah, because with Nebuchadnezzar it would be 5. 5 fully virgin.
Edom, Moab, and Ammon did escape. 3 less.
3 from 8 is 5.
No, it depends if you call all the ones, not just the titles. 7.
All right, we got to get it fine-tuned if we're going to put it up here. This don't work for me. We need to understand that this comes back to here at a fractal level. Any other thing? Go ahead.
There was a question here in this area. This decree in verse 29, which is like counteracting the previous decree, what does it mean? Or
Where are you talking
in
about?
29, he makes a decree which cancels the previous decrees.
We said that was the universal decree.
It's universal decree.
Because it's to every people.
Oh yeah.
But it's not actually appearing to be a universal Sunday law. It's counter to a Sunday law at this waymark. But what I'm arguing is it's to every nation, so it's universal, whatever it is. And you have to define the decrees by the context where they're put. And it seems that this one lines up on this waymark, even if it doesn't express universal decree.
It lines up, or at least the logic with Esther, because you have a decree first by the king, or by Haman, who wants to destroy everything, and then that one is cancelled by Mordecai's decree. And that's what's happening here also. We first have a decree that's against the Jews, and then this one is
Reverse.
the opposite.
Maybe this is Esther's decree.
Verse 29 is Esther's decree.
Yeah.
But still, we got to put it at this way, Mark. I'm asking.
It wouldn't be Esther's decree then.
Well, the fact that it says every people, nation.
Oh, maybe that's a resting of the scriptures on my part.
Where's Esther's decree?
The Sunday law, I think.
There's also a separation
If someone
of the
can-
worship.
No.
Where is it, Brittany? Do you remember?
Verse 29 is very strongly similar to verse 5 of chapter 2, because if you don't keep it, you are cut in pieces and your houses shall be made a dunghill. He says it in both verses, one time about the dream, the other one about the decree.
The one about what? Verse
in chapter 2 it's about the dream, and chapter 3.
Chapter 2, what verse?
5.
2:5. Then the king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the things, if you will not, shall be cut in pieces, and your house is made a dunghill. When are they cut in pieces?
I don't think they were cut because Daniel came and
No, I mean, but prophetically, when are they?
When the stone hits.
When the stone hits, they're broken into pieces. So, I think the stone's hitting from here onward, but that's part of the fruits of the stone hitting.
What does it mean when the house is made a dunghill?
It's destroyed.
Yeah, destroyed. Let me just try one thing real fast. I'm not sure that I know exactly where it is, but in Micah chapter 4, it's not, there's a passage, maybe it's Micah 5, where it's talking about breaking the wicked into pieces. But in any case, we can plug that in later. Nothing else in chapter 3?
I was going to say there's a couple of moral lessons I was seeing.
Moral lessons.
Well,
I was asking myself, why did they not bow? And I think it's because they understood that there was no way what Nebuchadnezzar was trying to do was going to come to fruition. They understood that the image was not just gold. And they also understood that the Hebrews are going to be going back to Israel in 70 years or whatever it was. So they just sort of knew outright as a fact, and I think that understanding of prophecy, I don't know why it says, settled into the truth, intellectually and spiritually, it cannot be moved. So I was seeing that as a moral lesson there. The understanding of prophecy was able to
strengthen them in their tests. Tyler?
Micah 1, 3, 4, and 5 all have breaking into pieces. I think they're all the same
Okay,
thing.
that's what it was. I was looking at Micah 4, 1, and you're saying it's Micah 1, 4. And the point...
No, Micah 1, 7, Micah 3, 3, Micah 4, 13. They all have it. Breaking into pieces.
No, okay, here's what I'm getting at. There's a passage, and I'm pretty sure it's in Micah, where it's talking about breaking in pieces.
With hooves?
In the passage, there's 10 entities that are broken.
Oh.
Which I'm saying is the breaking up of the 10 kings at the end of time. That's what I was looking for.
In 13 it says, it talks about that.
Yeah, he's saying it talks about it throughout Micah. But there's one passage where
It has 10.
it's 10 in a, without jumping from chapter to chapter in Micah, it's just in a series of verses. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just kind of taking a look back again here with this inquiry, and I was mentioning verse 24, but then also in verse 14 we also had an inquiry mention. Where Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true? So one is before the test and one is after the test. Is there an applicable application of that here somewhere?
Well, at the fractal level, you're going to have an inquiry at both those waymarks. I'm not sure that that's plugging that in, because then it would probably be arguing that there's an inquiry at 9/11. If you took the second inquiry back to the midnight cry, then you'd have to take the first inquiry back to the previous waymark, unless that was midnight.
Could be one midnight cry, the other one Sunday law.
Yeah, it might be midnight. There might an inquiry. Is there an inquiry at midnight? Okay, so that's probably what it is. Both inquiries are marked in there. Do you know what I'm talking about? Is that the one inquiry that we marked, that you understand Sunday law, but you're marking another one 10 verses before. So we know there's an inquiry here from the parable of the 10 virgins and other lines. So there's an inquiry here and an inquiry here. And my first thought to you is, well, if those are marking two different points, then when we take this level and move it to a fractal, then you got to see an inquiry back here. But then I said, well, no, what about midnight? And you say there's an inquiry at midnight? Someone else said it too.
Yeah, the oil. Give us of your oil.
No, that's midnight cry. What I'm saying is when we get into the details of the binding off period, have we marked also an inquiry here at midnight?
With Lot, don't they inquire the man in his house, or?
Okay, go to Genesis 19. I think it's 19.
There are 10 verses in between with this night from the two inquiries Henry is mentioning. There are exactly 10 verses in between.
Okay, you get that, Henry? Pardon me? Yes. Okay, so we were looking for the two places in verse 6, and Lot went out at the door unto them and shut the door after him. Lot's going out and he's shutting the same door that's going to get shut again.
Verse 5 is the inquiry.
And they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came in unto thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. And Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Okay, but and this blindness. And in verse 10, but the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house and shut the door. So you got the two door shuttings, and there is an inquiry here of the wicked to Lot, and we know there's an inquiry at the midnight cry on lots of lines. So I would agree with Brother Henry that this verse, what is it, verse 14?
14 and 24.
And verse 12 is another question by the angel. Hast thou here any besides?
Where, yeah, well, that's going through Genesis 19. All I was trying to do is put it in place. Yeah, that's probably it, Brother Henry. The inquiry here and inquire here. Anything else about Daniel 3?
Yeah, I was thinking verse 8. When the Chaldeans come and accuse the Jews, that we could kind of line it up with Daniel 6 when Daniel gets betrayed by the princess. And
when does the accusation take place?
At the midnight cry. When they see he does.
Shortly thereafter.
Or shortly thereafter.
Right, because they're going to see them stand faithful at the midnight cry.
Mm-hmm.
So accusation here. What did we determine the other day about who Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are?
The Nethinims.
At the big level, they're Edom, Moab, and Ammon. The Nethinims, the 11th hour workers. That answers why Daniel's not there. I like that. But at the fractal level, who are they? They're the Levites. Any other thoughts on Daniel 3? And one thing that we didn't put up here from...
It's interesting that the very tradition or understanding that they gave the king, they used that against them. In Daniel 2, Daniel 3, is the image is used against those that helped them to understand the dream.
What did you say?
That the projection that they made about what was going to happen in the future, it was used against them. The same thing.
Who made the prediction about what's going to happen in the future? What are you saying?
Daniel and the 3 young men were all together, working together to help Daniel to understand. They were part of, all 4 of them were praying to God to give Daniel the understanding. And after Daniel gave the understanding to Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar took that understanding and used it against them in the form of a worship. Just like in the Daniel, the very means that Daniel used in order to get understanding.
Okay, what was throwing me is that he used it against them. He didn't really use it against them.
Well, Daniel 2 was the...
It gets used against them, but you're not saying Nebuchadnezzar purposely said, okay,
no.
I'm going to use this against them.
No, I don't think purposely.
It gets used against them. That's a nice thought. What's it saying?
It's the inquiry, the prediction that they're making.
The prediction that they're going to make is going to be used against them ultimately.
Yeah.
When are they going to make the prediction? At midnight. So the midnight cry, there's going to be a prediction that gets used against you at the Sunday law. And what's the classic Sister White quote for that one? Had we known that our words were going to be used this way, we would have kept silent. But
I'm a little confused.
Okay.
Just a little bit. Yesterday you were saying that Daniel represents the Levites, right?
That was whose claim? Who was making that claim?
Tyler.
No.
It's even on the...
Yeah, we put it on the board.
Sorry, Tyler. Okay, I thought. Sorry. But now you're saying, no, not now you're saying, because also we mentioned that the 4 Hebrew fellas are Levites, which I could see, but Daniel's not there.
Go slow. The 4 Hebrew fellows are Levites.
Meshach, and Abednego, those guys.
There are 3.
So
there's 4. 3. When she's talking about 4, there's 4, Daniel included.
In Daniel 3?
No, she didn't say nothing about Daniel 3. She's talking about the 4 as a unit.
I should say there are 3 actually, because I'm thinking of the ones that are in the burning fire. They're Levites.
They're 3.
They're 3, because Daniel wasn't there.
Right.
So my confusion is are we marking that Daniel is a Levite or a priest? Because if the 3 Hebrews are Levites, then wouldn't Daniel be there too? Like I'm not making a connection. Do you understand the confusion?
A priest is a Levite.
No, they're changed. The symbol changes from chapter to chapter.
Okay, wait a second. Tanya's right, okay, but her rightness may or may not be a factor when you're considering these things. In certain applications, it may be a factor, and in certain applications, it may not. Mm-hmm. So what does she mean that the priests were Levites? You have to have this settled in your mind. What does Tanya mean that the priests were Levites when we make a distinction between the priests from 9/11 to the Midnight Cry and the Levites from the Midnight Cry to Sunday Law?
Those are the ones that we lifted up as an MC.
That's not the issue that she's making.
No?
What was Aaron the first high priest? Not really Melchizedek perhaps, but was Aaron the first high priest?
Yeah.
Was he a Levite?
Yeah.
Okay, so there is an argument that even though there is a distinction between the priests and the Levites, nevertheless, priests are also Levites. So depending on the context where you find them, you have to ascertain, is this Levites in a general sense, or is it making a distinction between the priests, the work of the priests, and the work of the Levites? This may not be a piece of evidence that you need right now to solve your confusion. All right, it may not be. Tyler, I think, is giving you the better answer. And what were you saying, Tyler?
Is that Daniel can be Daniel, or the three Hebrew worthies can
anyone.
Anyone can be anything depending on the chapter and the context you're looking at. So Daniel in chapter 1 can be a priest, and then in chapter 2 he can be a Levite, and in chapter 3 he could be a Nethinim if that's what the context decided.
And if we identify, and we already did this in this class today, we're saying that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are the 11th hour workers. And in Daniel 11:41, the place where the 11th hour workers are called out of is threefold: Edom, Moab, and Ammon. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay, so that works in here. But when you bring this level back to here, then the people that are called out in this history, the Levites, they are represented by Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego also. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are the Levites. They're the 11th hour workers in the same story. But you have to determine that by the context where you're applying it.
I see that. And I forgot.
Okay, so who calls out the 11th hour workers? Humanly.
The priests and the Levites.
The 144,000 that are put in place at the Sunday law. They're calling out the 11th hour workers. You follow that? So if Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are the 11th hour workers, who is the 144,000?
Is it Christ?
Well, I'd say Daniel. That's what I'm getting at. But as soon as I say that, someone's going to say, no, it was Nebuchadnezzar that called them out. Okay, but Daniel would be the 144,000, wouldn't he? Mm-hmm. Okay, he'd be the priest and the Levites all together. But if Edom, Moab, and Ammon are the Levites, if Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are the Levites that get called out in this history, if Daniel's the 144,000 calling out the 11th hour workers here, who is Daniel calling out the Levites here? The priests. So you got Daniel as, you could argue Daniel is both a priest and the Levite, or a priest and the 144,000. I guess what Tanya's argument is, and I never thought of it this way, but it works. The 144,000 are Levites, because they have both priests and Levites in them. But the Levites as a group are called here. Tanya?
For me, at least what it helps me when I look at the book of Daniel, Daniel is the only one who's allowed to have visions and understand them. You don't have any of the other ones, these three friends, actually handling any visions or understanding or explaining, at least in the book of Daniel. And this is what I was trying to make the difference between the priests and the Levites. The priests were allowed to look upon holy things, to where the priests, they were to carry them. They were to move on with the message, but they were not allowed to look upon them.
Do you understand what she's saying?
I'd like to hear it again.
What does she mean that someone other than Tanya answered this question? What does Tanya mean that the priests were allowed to look upon holy things and the Levites were only allowed to move them? Do you know what that means? Does anyone know what it means but are unwilling to explain it?
Wasn't that their work in the
No, not prophetically. By direction of the Lord through Moses. The priests, yep.
In the sanctuary, that was their job. The Levites could move this stuff, but the priests were the ones that could see it, that it was covered.
Yes.
They couldn't see it.
Okay, so what Tanya is saying is in this history, The priests get to look at the prophetic message, the holy thing, but the Levites, they're not going to be the ones that initially look at it, but they're going to be the ones that carry it. They're going to take it from here and carry it. Pardon me?
The priests look in the most holy place, and then the Levites take this message and carry it forward.
In 2 Chronicles 29, which is one of the primary points of reference for the relationship between the priests and the Levites, it takes 8 days to cleanse the temple, 8 days to cleanse the courtyard. It's the priests that are handling the interior work of cleaning the temple, because the Levites can't go in there and view the holy thing.
And the Nethinims were involved with carrying the wood and the water.
Yeah, and over here, the more mundane parts of the sanctuary were handled by the Nethinims. So you got that now?
I do.
Okay, because that would be part of your final test.
Great.
Sister Tamina, then Brother Hedden.
I have a question. When Meshach, Abednego, or the three friends of Daniel, when they are in the fiery furnace, and then Christ appears, and we say that those are the 11th hour workers, and Christ appears, is that the mare for the 11th hour workers? And if so, is Christ represented by the 144,000 which get lifted up at the Sunday law, and they are the appearance of Christ for the 11th hour workers?
I don't know about the last part of that, but yeah, this is definitely the mare. This is the appearance of Christ in the furnace. And this, at its first application, is the binding off of the 11th hour workers. And their binding off is the same as our binding off. It's the Mare Mara experience. What you're suggesting is because the 144,000 here are lifted up as an ensign, and they're sealed for eternity, and they're perfectly reflecting the character of Christ. And this is what prophecy says the 11th hour workers are looking to, is this ensign, in contrast with Satan personating Christ, who is also called Barabbas. In this history, the world is choosing between Christ and the 144,000 and Barabbas, Satan. Is that mare appearance for the 11th hour workers the 144,000?
144,000 are also going to be thrown in the furnace, right? They're going also through the tribulation with the 11th hour workers.
Daniel, he's in the lion den.
Yeah, they're going through it with him, but where is the priest's fiery furnace?
At midnight cry.
Midnight.
It's right here. It's this hour. This is an hour. Just like this is an hour. So where's the fiery furnace for the Levites?
Midnight cry, son-in-law.
Okay, so fiery furnace, fiery furnace, fiery furnace. So yeah, the 144,000 are going to be here in this experience with them. But they're not going through that process with them. They've already had the Mare experience.
I think illustrations like Mordecai, or Mordecai's a good one. He's directing Esther through a controversy. He's going through it himself as well, but she's the main focus, and she's the struggler, the one who's going through, who's more affected by it. Mordecai is there, but he's guiding her through it. And I think that's the same relationship between the priests and the Levites, and then the 144,000 and the 11th hour workers.
The black is chapter 1, right? So we have the 10 days, and don't we have the expression end of the days in chapter 1? I want to put that in place. I see your hand, Tanya and Kolo. It's chapter 2. Verse 15. 15 and 18.
18 is the end of the days.
And so it's 15. And at the end of 10, oh yeah, end of the days, 18. Okay, I stand corrected. So where do we place that? 'Cause I want to put that in place. Here it would be the end of the days, right? But at the big level, it would be here. All right, the hands.
We had that already.
It's up there already?
I had it on my chart here.
Yeah, we did it, but I thought, I put it probably the time I illustrated it before.
Then 2:28 is to the latter days.
Daniel 2:28 is telling him what will happen in the latter days.
Yes.
But the test comes at the end of the days.
I see.
In context to what Tamina was talking about, in verse 23, it points out that
Of what chapter?
of 3.
Of what?
3:23.
3?
It says that these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fire furnace. So, falling down is the Mara experience,
Right.
the Mara and the Mara,
Right.
they mingle there together on verse 23. But I also want to point out, Sister White says that Nebuchadnezzar, he said that he felt that it required more than ordinary power to deal with these noble men. His mind was strongly impressed that something unusual would interpose on their behalf, and his strongest men were ordered to deal with them. So Nebuchadnezzar knew that he was dealing with something supernatural when he came to those three men, because he probably remembered the deal that he had with Daniel and them.
Mm.
Paula?
I'm gonna say be like in 1888 where you had like the Sunday law enacted and retracted, and then you've got the Sunday law that's not reversible in Daniel 6.
What are you saying? I don't get it.
I'm just asking, is I'm looking at it, and because it kind of came into place, and then just I'm not sure.
What kind of came into place?
This golden image thing came into place, and then the three Hebrew boys didn't worship the image, and then someone, etc. You know, they came to Nebuchadnezzar, and then they brought into Nebuchadnezzar. But what I'm seeing is it's enacted, and then Nebuchadnezzar retracts it.
Okay, but well, I think if I was going to argue against that, and I think I would say if you're going to reference 1888, then the evidence is 1888 is 9/11. Okay, and you're saying at 9/11 the Blair Bill is a Sunday law that ultimately doesn't get enforced. Is there a Sunday law at 9/11 that doesn't get enforced?
The Patriot Act.
The Patriot Act is enacted, but at 9/11 they were going to pass the Sunday law, had nothing turned them out of the way. Because why is that? Okay, those go with it. But what's the to me? I don't know which is the primary argument, but the primary argument to me is that when Ezra comes out of Babylon, he already has the third decree. He has the third decree with him. He has the Sunday law with him, and he leaves Babylon on the first day of the first month. So he's got the Sunday law right there. That's the Blair Bill. It's not going to get enforced because the ass is going to turn him out of the way. That's where I would put 1888, because Sister White's clear. This is the beginning of the light that would lighten the earth with its whole glory. This is the beginning of the latter rain. So putting it down here, I think, is mixing the waymarks. Was there another hand? Okay, Henry.
Yeah, I was just going to mention there, I was just going back again to the previous thought, where I just seen also like with chapter 1, that would be like a representation of all the different positions, you know, from the priests, Levites around the camp, and then eventually the Nethinims on the outside. So I just see kind of the position of each one of them, and yet each one of them have that specific word.
All right. I don't get it, but let me put a couple things in place. to close, if we're in advance of tomorrow, go to chapter 4, verse 34. Whose turn to read? Sister Solange? 4:34.
And at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes unto heaven, and my understanding returned unto me. And I blessed the Most High. I praised and honored him, and lived forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation.
No, that's good. That's good. At the end of the days, when does Nebuchadnezzar make this statement at the end of the days? What days are concluding in the story is what I'm trying to say. The end of the days. This is chapter 4. And we're using the idea that Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar are type, anti-type. And you can take the beginning and combine it with the end. You can take the beginning of Adventism and lay over the end of Adventism, they're going to line up. You can take the beginning of the 2300 days and lay it over the end of the 2300 days and they're going to line up. That's what type, anti-type does for us. So when we put the story of Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 4 and Belshazzar in chapter 5, along with the quote where Sister White says they had a type, anti-type relationship, when you get to the end of the days, Nebuchadnezzar is a symbol of justification by faith. Why is that? What's the classic passage in the Spirit of Prophecy that Sister White defines the work of the gospel as? The work of the gospel is, I don't know it word for word, taking the pride of humanity and humbling it in the dust. Okay, it's some expression like that. It's very. How many know that expression? You know of it, but you know that I butchered it. But that's what's happened with Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of the days, he's a symbol of those that have been justified by faith, whereas Belshazzar dies in that very night. Okay, so they're the wise and the foolish virgins. So the end of the days for Nebuchadnezzar comes at the end of 7 times. Yes? So when did the 7 times begin for Nebuchadnezzar? This is chapter 4 now. We've already dealt with this once. I'm just going to put it in place in advance of tomorrow. Pardon me? The same hour. Okay, the same hour. Verse 33. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar lifts himself up in pride, and at same hour a pronouncement comes, you're going to be living like an animal. I'm saying that's at the midnight cry.
You want me to read that?
You can read that quote.
Yes, it says, this is from Testimonies from the Ministers, page 456. What is justification by faith? It is the work of God in laying the glory of men in the dust and doing for man that which it is not in his power to do for himself.
And that's what Nebuchadnezzar is illustrating in this history of 2,520 days.
Sorry, what page was that?
456.
456.
Is Brother Michael not here?
What book is that, Noel?
Testimonies from Minister.
Because this is 2,520 days, is it not?
Yeah, but you've got 12 months prior to that.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to get to that. But this is 2,520 days, and the pioneers argue that the end of the days is the end of the 2,300-year prophecy. And I've argued that the end of the days is the end of the prophetic periods in a corporate sense. Okay? And this would identify here the end of the days as the end of the 2520, which also ended on October 22nd, 1844. But it's not exclusively the 2300 days that is the end of the days. But nevertheless, the end of the days where he's justified by faith is here. It's followed this period where he lifts himself up in pride against a warning message that he has been given a year before, based upon what? A dream that what? Troubled him. Okay, he had a troubled dream just like Pharaoh and just like he did in chapter 2. So I'm saying chapter 4, his dream is there. So now we have to determine.
He actually calls it visions.
Yeah, visions of what?
Well, he makes
Visions of what?
Visions of mine, visions of mine head, which is the Hazon.
Yeah, but that's not my point. Where did he have those visions? Upon my bed. Dream that troubled him. So he calls in the wise men to explain the dream to him. This time he tells them what the dream is. And so is that this history here? Because if it is, then right here is the 12 months. Is the 12 months. 1 year.
Breaking it up. Where do we get that year from?
Okay, let's read it in closing. We'll have to come back to this.
Verse 28.
Verse 28.
29, sorry.
At the end of 12 months.
29.
So he gets a warning. The point is Daniel warns him. And before Daniel warns him, Daniel wants some time, doesn't he? He hears the dream. He wants some time. How much time does he want? That's verse 19. So is this the 1 hour? And this the 1 year? And this the 7 years? And our point of reference is the argument that he has a dream here that troubles him.
Could there be some repeats and enlarges in there?
Some repeats and enlarges. Probably there could be, because this is prophecy. What's your point? You got 30 seconds to make your point.
My point is that I think the 1 hour is probably at the binding off, but I see what you're saying there, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we did it. Those people that are watching on the web are going to realize we did it differently the first time around. But I'm just putting it in place for tomorrow, where we can continue building this. Pardon me?
What does it say there in the binding off?
1 year.
1 year. Okay, because he was 12 months. He gets a warning message from Daniel that explains the dream to him, and then 1 year later he disregards it, and that's when his 7 times begins that leads him to the end of the days.
It's interesting that if you put it at 7 years with the 1 year, you have 8 years, which is a restoration then at the end of the 8 years.
Yeah, or if you do this as a fractal, then you've got 8 and 8, perhaps.
You know what the 2520, we said that is the scattering, but I was wanting the 2300 days, the beginning of the gathering.
Brother Gabriel, you want to have a closing prayer?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this morning of Bible study, and we ask you now to be with us for the rest of the day as we go to our activities. Be with us and bless us this day. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.